Assalamu alaikum friends, how are you? Hope you all are doing good. As you know that we have come towards the end of our SBR revision gate questions. There are 8 more questions that I have to cover, and after that I'll be over with the SBR revision. So what am I going to do next after I finish the revision kit is that I'm going to solve your doubts like one to one. So you can contact me on WhatsApp, email. You can email me to get my number because I don't disclose my number publicly on any social media. So if someone wants my number and wants to connect with me to ask questions, doubts, you can email me. Okay. And for the ones who are connected with me on Instagram, you can message me there. And Facebook, I have a Facebook page there. You can send your messages. So I'll be solving that. And if any one of you wants me to mark their mock, okay, I will be not marking many mocks, one mock, maybe one question for a mock, because if I go through one question of yours that you have solved properly in the time, I will be able to understand how you think and what is your answering style and what you need to improve. So you don't have to send me the whole paper of SBR. Not all the 4 questions is not required. Only any one question, even if it's for 7 marks, even if it's for 10 marks. But when you send me a question, make sure that there should be two questions. One on calculations, one on theory questions, because I need to see both. Okay. And 1 week before the exam, I will not be taking any more questions. I will not be marking any more papers because I need at least 2 to 3 days to give you the feedback. I will be giving you the feedback personally on a one-to-one. Okay, it's not possible for me to give the feedback immediately that day, the day you have sent me the question. I will take 2-3 days, and after that you will get the feedback. So if you give me a day before the exam or 2 days before the exam for me to mark a paper, it's not possible for me to give the feedback so fast. Even if I give the feedback also in one day, you will take time to process and you will take time to correct. Where will you get the time? Because you have exam, right? So don't avoid it. Okay, you should not be giving me any paper within 1 week. Okay, 1 week before the exam, that's okay. I mean, there should be a 1 week gap. That 1 week gap, you'll be whatever the feedback you have received from me or from your tutor or whatever you have discovered, you are working on it. Okay, you will be doing your mocks, your past papers, and all those things. It's like a final revision. There, you should not send me any mocks to mark. So yeah, that I will be doing. It is not only for SBR, it is for AFM only. AFM also. So AFM and SBR, only these 2 subjects I'll be taking. Personal questions. And also ATX, if anyone has doubt, ATX, that I will be doing. For other papers like AAA, APM, since I have not taken them as optional paper, I cannot mark your answers. Okay. And SBL, uh, I will not be marking your questions. It's not possible for me to mark the answers. I mean, we all know that it's an integrated this thing and all. I cannot mark your answers, but yeah, definitely, uh, I can give you some guidance. For example, how to start a paper, or what are the things, how to read, how to do it in a time given, how to get the professional mark, the 20 professional marks in SBL. Already video is out there, but if anyone wants me to give a brief advice, that I can do. But I cannot mark your paper for SBL. Okay, not currently, not for the current sitting, for not for the December 2021 session, but inshallah in the future maybe. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you guys before I start this question. So now let's come back to the question. Verge. First requirement A. It is regarding, as you can see, there are segments. Okay, when you read the word segment, what should come in your mind? Which standard deals with segments? You have to be very quick in this. One IFRS 8. IFRS 8 for 7 marks. Even though I didn't read the case study, see some words when you see you'll be able to know. Now that does not mean that only IFRS 8 is only tested just because segment is there. Maybe inside that there could be some small other standards also involved. Sometimes it's just a standalone standard. And how do you know that? You will not know it until you don't read the whole case study. Okay, but at least we know the main idea. The theme is IFRS 8. Now coming to the second one, as you can see, some number, and whenever some numbers are there, first one no calculation because no numbers are there. Second one you have to do some calculations because you can see some figure, and this is also for seven marks. Okay, so this we don't know still what is it about, but it looks like something to do with the revenue and all, because they told total revenue from contract, something to do with IFRS 15 looks like. But let's see whether we have any other standard or not. 7 marks. Okay, so the required is advice on the accounting issues, how they have to deal. Coming to this one, B. Okay, B, you are going to have your 2 professional marks and 9 marks. Okay, whenever your professional marks are there, okay, your marks also will be very, you'll be getting huge amount of marks for that particular question. Wherever your professional marks are there, they will not give you a question for 3 marks, and also the 2 professional marks. Okay, for a 3 marks question, they will not give you professional mark. Okay, professional mark comes with a huge amount of marks. That's why you need to pay particular attention to this type of questions. Okay, it's like a bonus for you, the 2 professional marks, because these professional marks are very easy to get. Trust me, it's not hard, not at all hard. You focus on the format and you focus on the quality of your discussion. Some discussions, for example, you are putting some more insight which is not even there in the case study, something else from your experience or some commercial acumen, some knowledge that you have acquired, you are trying to build up some argument in the answer. Okay, but exactly when you see the marking scheme, you will not be able to pinpoint, okay, this is the place where I'm getting the professional marks. Remember guys, 2 professional mark does not mean you are writing 2 extra points to get the 2 professional marks. Okay, so now let's start with the first one. In his annual financial statements, they have publicly limited company identified the 3 operating segments. Segment 1, local rail operation. 2, intercity train operation. 3, railway construction. So this is relating to something railway, right? The company disclosed 2 reportable segment. Segment 1 and 2 were aggregated into a single reporting operating segment. Okay, you can aggregate sometimes. Yeah, there are rules also on aggregation and all. Operating segment 1 and 2 have been aggregated on the basis of why they have been aggregated. See, whenever you have aggregate something, remember, there should be something. Maybe they are similar, they should have some similar characteristics. Otherwise, you cannot aggregate. On the basis of similar business characteristics, nature of their product and services, maybe they are same. And in the local train market, it is the local transport authority which awards the contract. Okay, and pays Verge for its services. In the local trade market, contracts were awarded following a competitive tender process. And the ticket prices paid by passengers are paid to the transport authority. In the inner city, okay, this is regarding local train, the segment 1, okay, that they are doing competitive tender process and the money goes to transport authority. In the intercity, that is your segment 2, ticket prices are set by Verge. Okay, pay very careful attention. You have to compare segment 1 and segment 2, how they are setting prices and whom the prices are going to. Why? Because you have been told they are aggregated based on similar business characteristics and product and services. Is it same? You have to see, otherwise you cannot aggregate. So they, in the local train segment 1, competitive tender process, and prices paid by passengers are paid to the transport authority. Correct. Segment 2, ticket prices are set by Verge and the passengers pay Verge for the services provided. You can see the difference. Segment 1, prices that are paid by passengers goes to transport authority. Segment 2 goes to Verge, the company, for 7 marks. Okay, that's right. Clearly, you should be able to identify the standard. Sometimes some questions you must have seen that they give you the standard, that according to this particular so-called particular standard, what are the accounting treatments. Okay, but most of the time they will not give you. So don't assume that the name of the standard or the number will be given to you. You have to identify by reading. Okay, so now Remember one thing from tutorial note. What did they say? Even though you don't have detailed knowledge of the standard, at least you should reach a sensible conclusion whether segment 1 and 2 should be aggregated or not. This is something which should be easy to you, because think, when do you aggregate two or three things? When they are similar. You always try to group similar things together, right? So same knowledge is apply here, and see, that's it. Even if you don't have detailed knowledge of IFRS, that should be okay. IFRS 8 is given. What most students think that because IFRS 8 is given, maybe quantitative threshold I have to apply 75%, 10%. It's not applicable here. No numbers, nothing has been mentioned. Here the question is whether you have to aggregate the two segment or not. Okay, so focus your answer on that point. First, apply the rule from IFRS 8. What IFRS 8 says about it. Operating segments state that reportables are those. What are reportable segment? Define. Are those operating segments or aggregation of operating segment for which segment information must be separately reported. Those are known as reportable segment. You have to give information. Okay. Whether you aggregate or you disaggregate, you have to give information about those segments. That is the meaning of reportable segment. Okay, now we are directly moving to the aggregation. What are the bases of aggregation? How? When can we aggregate? Okay, this is something I have explained in IFRS 8. Go back, check my lecture on IFRS 8. You will get it under my playlist SBR revision. SBR lecture. SBR lectures. Yes, all this thing is there. So aggregation, and this is a very small standard. Okay, so it should be very easy. Aggregation of one or more operating segments into a simple reportable segment is permitted, but not required. Okay, it is permitted, but it is not a requirement. It's not a must that you have to do it. Where certain conditions are met. What are the principal condition? Principal condition being that operating segment should have similar economic characteristics. This is the principal condition. And the segment must be similar in each of the following respect. How could it be similar? Similar in what? These are the things. Okay. This whole list is there in your textbook also, you will get it. This is purely you're applying knowledge here. Nature of product and service should be same. Nature of the production process should be same. The type of the class of customer, for example, BMW and Toyota, they are not, you cannot aggregate them together into same. Why? BMW is for the luxurious customer, the rich class, and Toyota is the one who can afford, right? So it's just an example. The methods used to distribute. How are you distributing? One you're distributing through online, the other one you're distributing through physical store. You cannot aggregate them together. The nature of the regulatory environment. Are they regulated by the same laws and regulations, or they are different? One is highly regulated, the other one is it's flexible. You cannot aggregate. Okay. So each of this point you don't have to explain. Okay, or each of these bullet points, because it is already explained before that these are characteristics that should be there to tell that whether it's similar or not. If you write it in like this in bullet points or in numbers also 1 2 3 4 5, you will still get the marks. Even if you don't remember all the points, at least try to give 2 to 3 points. Okay. Now till here I will separate this for you. This is your knowledge part. After this comes your application to the case study. You always have to write in this manner only. Start with the knowledge from your standard and then go to the application to the case study. Whether the nature is similar, whether the type of customer is similar. You might not get for each point to explain. Apply, no need. Whatever you can from the case study only. Maybe first and the second point you can apply to the case study. The rest is not applicable because you don't have much information. It's okay. Don't struggle to get for each. So we'll see. Segment 1 and 2. Whether they have similar customer or not. We'll start with that. They have different customer. They have different customer. How do you know that? This is the statement you are making. Make a statement, your opinion, obviously based on the case study, then give the facts from the case study. Different customer. The decision to award or withdraw a local train contract rests with the transport authority in segment 1. You can even mention also that in segment 1, it's with the transport authority. The decision is in the hand of transport authority to award or withdraw local train contract, and not with the end customer, the passenger. Passenger does not decide whom to give the contract or not. It rests with the transport authority. So in this case, customer is transport authority. In contrast, the decision to withdraw from a route in the inner city, this one, normally rests with Verge, but would be largely influenced by the passenger's actions also. That would lead to the route becoming economically unviable in segment 2. So in the view of the fact that the segments have different customer, the two segments, because finally this is like a conclusion, this from here to here. Because they are different customer, the segments, the two segments do not satisfy the aggregation criteria above. Understood? Which point is this out of this 5 bullet points that you're applying? Third one, the type or the class of customer. This one. Third point you are applying. Understood? Now, coming to the next. So, when you're giving a particular point, give it in one point. This is one point that you're mentioning, that they have different customer. Now, second point might be here. Okay. What is it? What is the next difference that you could talk about? The prices. The prices that you are setting. Here you're talking about the customer. Here you're talking about the price. Okay. So in the local train market, local event segment 1, you can even write segment 1 also, it's okay. Contracts are awarded. How are the contracts given? Competitive tender is there. You have to talk about this process. You are talking about production process, right? And consequently, there is no exposure to passenger revenue. There is no exposure to passenger revenue risk. And the ticket prices paid by passengers set by also the ticket. This is from the case study only. Directly you can pick up. Ticket prices by passengers are set by transport authority and not by Verge. But in segment 2 is the opposite. It is set by Verge. Okay? Ticket prices are set by Verge. So what about the revenue? The revenue is there for the fares paid by passengers traveling on the trains. It will affect the revenue also. So in this set of circumstances, the company is exposed to passenger revenue risk. This risk would affect the two segments in different ways. Both of them have the risk, but it will affect the segment in different ways. Okay. Therefore, the economic characteristics of the two segments are different. See, these are the economic characteristics, how they work. This is also different. And therefore, they should be reported as separate segment. Finally, the conclusion here also you will get a mark. To give one conclusion, whether they should be aggregated or not, you can say, no, they should be disaggregated. They should be shown as separate segment, both of it. This, for writing this, you will get 1 mark. You are basing this decision based on what? Characteristics are different, customers are different, you have given the points also. So you see this nature of answering is very easy. First apply from the case study. From your knowledge of IFRS 8, write the bullet points, then start by one linking. This is which point? The nature of the economic characteristics. Okay. So economic characteristics are not same. Now we are coming to the second one. This is regarding revenue recognition, as I told you, IFRS 15. We'll need to read the case study. Second one, yes. This is also for 7 marks. This should be easier because number one, IFRS 15 is a bit easier. It just tested frequently, so students usually study that. And another thing is calculations are involved here. So this should be a little bit easier for you to get the marks. Okay. Verge entered into a contract with a government body. Entered with whom? Not with a customer, with a government body. So in this case, government body also could be a customer. On 1st of April 2001, date is very important because you have been given date here. To undertake maintenance services on a new railway line. What could be the performance obligation? Maintenance services. The total revenue from the contract is what? 5 million over a 3-year period. Just check, the wordings are very important when it comes to revenue. The contract states 1 million will be paid at the commencement of the contract. 1 million at the commencement will be paid. But although invoices will be subsequently sent at the end of each year, the government authority will only settle the subsequent amounts owing when the contract is completed only. You'll be paid. Invoices sent by this one to date, including 1 million above. 2002 and 3, 2.8 and 1.2. Balance. What do you mean balance? Okay, just add. We need to add 1, 2.8. Sorry, wait. 2.8, 1.2. Add. It's 5 million. Is it? It should add to 5 million. So the balance will be invoiced on 31st March 2004. Verge has only accounted for the initial payment in the financial statements at 31st March 2002. As no subsequent amounts to be paid until this one. The amounts of the invoices reflect the work undertaken in the period. Verge wishes to know how to account for the revenue of the contract in the financial statements to the date market interest rates are currently 6%. How to account for this revenue? Because recognizing revenue based on a contract, especially this type of contract which usually takes more than a year, it's complex nature. Okay, so now we'll come to the answer. How do you start? How do you start this answer? IFRS 8 you understood. What about this IFRS 15? Mention, pay careful attention to the dates. Why? Because of date you might have to discount sometime. That's why you have been given the market interest rate. Okay, pay particular attention why certain information is suddenly given to you. For example, normally in IFRS 15 revenue, why did they give you 6% market interest rate? Usually this should be not given in revenue recognition. It's not given. Usually. It does not mean that it will be never given to you. Obviously it will be. Why it is given? And look at the dates. That means you have to find the present value. This will be paid something in the future, but you have to record today in the today's financial statement. So you have to find the present value of those future values, right? To determine whether some prior period error has occurred or not. Okay, first of all, you need to see whether this revenue should be recognized at a point in time or over a period of time. Don't go and write the 5 steps of revenue recognition. That there's a contract, identify a contract with the customer, performance obligation, then consideration. No, the question is not asking you. The question is asking how revenue should be recognized. To recognize that, before coming to calculation, first recognize whether it should be recognized at a point in time or over a period of time. At a point of time, this is very important whenever revenue recognition comes. First point is this. From here only you will proceed. How do you proceed? Definitely the calculation. You see down calculations here. And as I told you that this some prior period error. That means maybe you have made in the previous year some error has been made. So there are two things here. Usually students miss this prior period error. Pay careful attention to the dates. Whenever more multiple dates are given to you, usually this issue comes. Prior period error. If it was only single year, then this issue will not come prior period error. Because there are many dates, you might have made mistake somewhere in some date. So that's why. This is a hint for you. Multiple dates means talk about prior period error. Obviously, there might not be always, but this at least this issue comes. That's why I told you when you're reading the case study, it looks like it's only IFRS 15, but for 7 marks, the students start panicking. How am I going to write for 7 marks? Because it's less to write, right? You just calculate, you just write it's over a bit of time and at a point in time. Then what about the next? With that, you will not get 7 marks, maybe let's say 3 marks. So that's why you need to pay particular attention to things like this, which easily could be missed out. Prior period error. You see, for that you will be getting marks. But first solve the revenue recognition. This is a revenue recognition stage. Prior period error will come to that later. Don't start first talking about prior period error. Always start mentioning things which are very common to you. like which is easily you can understand. Some things which is hidden, we'll talk about it later, so that at least when you're running short of time you will not lose out on the easy marks. Okay, because this might be your last question, right? It's in section B, so it could be your, this is two professional marks are given, means this is your question number 4. So usually coming to this stage, students don't have much time, so at least get some marks. Even though you have missed out on this prior period error, you didn't mention about this, it's okay. At least you will get some marks. Let's say out of 7 you might get 3 marks or 4 marks for this revenue recognition, so it's okay. Something is better than nothing. So immediately start over that. Maintenance services, they are simultaneously received and consumed. Immediately tackle it. No need to discuss what is over a period of time, these are the conditions, at a point in time these are the conditions. It's not needed. What is the nature of the product? What is the service here? Maintenance service. And maintenance services are simultaneously received and consumed. You receive it and you consume it. It's not some good that you can hold it and later if you want you use it. The same time you are performing, giving the services, the same time they are receiving it also simultaneously. It's like teaching. I teach, you are receiving my services. I'm delivering, at the same time you are receiving also simultaneously. So maintenance service is also something like that. Why we are mentioning this point here? This is one of the characteristics to recognize revenue over a period of time. If you remember the 3 bullet points that I've explained to you under IFRS 15, that these 3 conditions are there means it's over a period of time. So this is one of it. Usually services are over a period of time, right? Hint is that. Because you simultaneously receive and consume the services. So according to IFRS 15, this means that the revenue should be recognized over time or over a period of time based on the progress towards the satisfaction of the performance obligation. That means you recognize revenue based on the amount of work, amount of the performance obligation. In this case, amount of the maintenance services that you have given. Let's say you have given only 60% maintenance services are provided. Then you will recognize revenue also 60% only. Okay, that is the meaning of this. So thus Word should recognize revenue as work is performed throughout the contract life. How much work you have performed during that contract life? 3 years, you have to recognize revenue also according to that. Okay. First talk about maintenance services from IFRS 15, then talk about the Verge, the company, how they are recognizing revenue. So the length of the time between the transfer of the period promise. Now this is one point. Understand this, please. One point is this. Second point, that's from here. Each paragraph should give you 1 point at least. This is the technique. So that's why make sure that when you're writing in different paragraph, don't write the same point in 2 paragraphs. It does not make sense. It should be 2 different points that you are mentioning. Here you talked about over a period of time, recognize revenue over a period of time. That's what you told. It's not that one sentence will give you 1 mark. 1 mark, 2 mark, 3. How many sentences are here? 1, 2, 3. No, it's not like that. It's not on sentences that you are getting marks. It is on the point that you're mentioning. That point you can explain in 1 line, 2 line, 3 sentences is up. Right? Some of you might write 5 lines also, which is not worth it. Try to keep short and brief. Once you have covered a point, don't explain too much. Second, length of the time between the transfer of the promised services and the payment date suggests that there's a significant financing component. Mention about this, students often miss out on this point. Usually, when there is a delay in the date when you are going to deliver the services and the payment that you are receiving, this suggests that this is a significant financing component. Okay, because it's different. If it was on the same date, for example, today I'm going to deliver the service and today only I'm going to get the payment, then it's okay. Then the significant financing component will not come. But in this case, this is an issue because it's a different date. You're receiving on some other date, you're delivering services some other date. There's a difference gap. This gap is known as significant financing component. Understood? So for this, you will get another mark. 1 mark is this. Just keep an eye on how many marks you are collecting out of the 7. It's very important. So the consideration should be should be discounted to present value. Using the rate at which the customer could borrow, that is which rate? What is the interest rate of the market? 6%. It's given to you, know. You can even mention the rate also. The rate at which customer could borrow, which is 6%. That also you can write. In that way also it's okay. Because anyway, while you're using calculation, you are going to show that 6%. So whether you write that 6% in here or not does not matter so much because you already wrote. So 1 mark. Then what? Do you have anything else to write? Think. What else can you write? You cannot write anything more. Now it's just the calculation because you've explained everything. You recognize revenue over a period of time, you discount it to the present value. The two things you have covered. Now comes the calculation. So in the year ended, which year ended? Mention the year. For this you will get 1 mark, for this you will get 1 mark. Total 4 marks. Okay. Out of 7, 4 marks are already you have got for revenue recognition. That means the remaining 3 are for your prior period error. If you can understand this, you have understood everything. This is an answering technique that you should know. Why? Because this is for 31st March 2002 and this is for 31st March 2003. Different paragraphs, different days, different paragraphs. So in the year ended 31st March, start with the date, then talk calculation. In the year ended 31st March 2002, Verge should have recorded revenue of how much? Of how much? 2.6 million. Next to it only you can show the calculation. How they have got this 2.6 million. It's in the bracket. Like this also you can present. We'll go to the next point later. First, how did they recognize this revenue? We'll see on the calculation. It is, if you see 1 plus 1.8 into 1 divided by 1.6 to the power 2. 6 we know, 1 divided by 1.06 because interest rate. We are finding the present value of this 1.8 to the power 2 because we are going to spread this over 2 years. Okay, and it is on 1.8 you are finding the present value. 1, obviously 1 will be there. 1 you don't have to find any present value. Initial payment. So 1 plus 1.8, this 1.8 you are discounting. We'll see here. Don't go to the financing component yet. First start understand the revenue recognition because revenue recognition is easy. Okay, 1 point, where is that 1.8? See, they told including 1.8. That means this 2.8 already includes 1.8. Just give me a minute. That is 2.2. It's 2.6. So don't go and say 2.8. See, most of you will go and write 2.8 only. Why? Because it's already given. And for the third, you will write 1.2. If things were this easy in life, students would have not failed SBR or any subject, in fact, in ACC. But things are not that easy. Please always keep this skeptical mind that there will be some error. Some error will be there. They will always present numbers with errors only. Okay. So this is including 1 million. This 2.8 and 1.2. Take that 1 million out. So this 2.8, 1 plus 2.8 minus 1 is what? 1.8. On this 1.8 you have to find discount. Okay. You have to find discount. So 2.86% to the power 2. Okay. They have specifically told you for year ended 31st March 2002 wherever applicable and for 31st March 2003. That's why for both this year you are going to get separate marks. For both the years you have to show this. Okay, for both the two issues above. Okay. But for the first one, the segment it's okay because not numbers are not there. So you, and it's not applicable also. They told wherever it's applicable for 31st March 2002. Here it is 31st March 2003. So it's okay. Here here that does not matter so much. But second one it matters. Okay. So just the balance will be invoiced on 31st March. Okay, this is just a minute. There's no subsequent amounts to be paid until 31st March 2004. So amounts are to be paid on 31st March 2004. So for 31st March 2000 to 31st March 2003 and 31st March 2004. Okay, now I will tell you why it is 1.06 to the power 2, because it's very important that you should know this voice to the power 2. This is when you're discounting it on this date, it will be 0. I mean, no discount. Discount factor will be 1. Okay, because this is the present year, current year. Whatever you are receiving, no need to discount this year. But this year, anything, let's say X, you have to bring this. You have to. This is a future value. On 31st March 2002, whatever the payments on the future from 31st March 2002 are your future payments. You have to discount it back to 31st March 2002. So bring this back. It will be 1 year. That means to the power 1. If you want to bring anything on 31st March 2004, payments you are receiving on this date, you have to bring this back to this year date. That means you're finding the present value on 31st March 2002 for the payment of 31st March 2004 after 2 years. That's why you are bringing it back to by 2 years to find present value. That's why this is to the power 2. Now do you understand why? Because payments you are going to receive 31st March 2004. So that's why on 31st March 2002, find the present value of 31st March 2004. That means 2 years. So bring it back to the 2 years. That's why it's to the power 2. Or you can just take that difference also in the year. From 2002 to 2004. The difference is 2 years. 2 years. Okay. So discount only this 1.8. You see, this is in a separate bracket and plus 1.8. First perform the function of 1.8 into 1 divided by 1.06 to the power 2. Then add with 1 million. It's not 1 million plus 1.8 and then you are discounting. No. If you can see, there's a small bracket inside that big bracket. Then you should get 2.6. If you're not getting this in one row, 2.6, do not worry. Do the calculation separately. For example, 1 million. Okay, I will show you this also because students often struggle and they have been asking me why they are not getting the figure. Okay. So, okay, I will show you down here. Here I will show you. 1 million will remain 1 million. Perform 1.8 into this separately. So when you're performing 1.8 into 1 divided by 1.06 to the power 2, okay, let me also calculate and you also calculate. It will be 1.06, 1.6, 1.60 something. So like this you perform separately. This already is there. No need to do anything. Perform separately you can do and then just add 2.6. Or in your calculator or in your Excel, wherever you're doing this calculation, in one row only you can do. But just check in through both the method. Okay, when you're practicing, see both the method. Which one is more, which saves your time more? And are you getting it in one row? Are you getting 2.6? These are very important things that you need to know. Because the same is applicable for your ATX because calculations are heavily is there. Wherever calculations are there, even in your AFM, because these are number based, heavily number based papers. Okay. So you need these things whether you can perform a calculation in one go or separate steps you have to do. But it's okay, it does not matter. It's not compulsory in one step all you have to do. The reason why I tell it's better to do it in one step is it saves time. That's the only thing. Only from the time perspective. But otherwise it's better to do it separately because it gives you more guarantee that your answer is correct. Accuracy you can easily check. Okay. Rather than doing it in one go, because in one go if you do a mistake again you have to do the same thing, then it wastes a lot of time. Okay. So some of you who are super fast, they what they do is they do in both the ways. They do it in one go and they do it in a separate way and they try to check whether their answers are matching or not, just in order to make sure that their answers are correct. That is also a good technique that you can use, but it should not waste so much of time. You should be very fast. Okay. I used to do that usually. Not for all the calculations, some calculations where heavily there are lots of steps in one, like that line is very big. Here it's okay, it's just one, very easy. But some calculations are very lengthy, so there I used to do that. But don't do this for all the questions because some are very easy, it's not needed two times. Okay. Okay, now let's come to this. Since Verge has received this 1 million cash, this 1 million cash they have received. So from this 2.6, take that 1 million out now. Okay. Revenue, yes sir. See, revenue you can recognize 2.6. But since 1 million cash they have received, a receivable of 1.6 million should have been recognized. How many of you understand this point thing? In short, receivable. Out of 2.6, already one you have received. So how much your customers have to pay you, your debtors have to pay you? Only 1.6. So that receivable also you have to recognize, no? 1.6. So that's the thing. That is the meaning of significant financing component. That means when your dates, that means you are paying to your customer on credit. Sorry, your customers are taking on credit from you the goods or services. They will pay later, okay? And you are giving them the services. They will pay later. It's like that. That is the meaning of significant financing component. Which many students, I don't know what they start worrying, panicking, seeing the word financing component looks like something to do with finance and all. In other words, debtors only, receivable only you're finding. Same for 31st March 2003. If you have understood 2002, 31st March 2003 should be easier for you because it's the same thing. Only the numbers will change this year. Same step. Revenue should be recorded at this. How? 1.2 into 1.06. This time you are not doing to the power 2. It should be to the power 1. Okay, that's why you cannot see any number above because it's 1.106 to the power 1. Because this time is 2003, 2004. You are just bringing 1 year back. For 31st March 2003, 2004 figure 1 year only, no? You're bringing. That's why it's to the power 1. So no need to show to the power 1. You can just keep it 1 divided by 1.06. Many of you ask me why. Or you might ask me even if you have not asked me yet because I've not done this question before. So before you ask me this question, let me tell you why. Because you might be thinking because this one is to the power 2, the previous one. Why this is not to the power 3? Normally the ones who have done FM, they know that when you discount, it goes up, right? But why it didn't go up? Because here the year changed, no? If it was for 31st March 2002, yes, then I can say it would be 1 year you have to add more. But in this case, you are coming forward to 1 year after 1 year. So it's to the power 1 from 2003 to 4. That's why it's 1 divided by 1.06. No need to show that 1. It will be same only. Into 1.2. Okay. Here you are not taking any 1 million or something. That 1 million you are adding or taking it only for 31st March 2002. For 31st March 2003, 1 million is not needed. Just discount this. It's enough. 1.2. Okay. What is 1.2? This 1.2. This 1.2 you are discounting. Understood? I think after seeing this video and the way this is solved, you will be in love with this questions. IFRS 50. Okay. Anyway, so discount and 1.13. Okay. So in addition, the discount on the receivable recognized in the year ended 31st March must be unwound. Discount on the receivable recognized in the year ended 31st March 2002 must be unwound. This is an additional thing when it comes to 31st March 2003. It was not there on 31st March 2002. Again, I'm reading discount on the receivable recognized in the year ended. See, in the year ended, you have recognized a receivable, no? What is the amount? 1.1.6. On that 1.6, okay, you have to apply a discount. You have to unbound that discount 6%. You have to recognize it in 31st March 2003. So consequently, there will be an interest income. There will be an interest income also. What is the receivable on 31st March 2002? 1.6. On that, multiply 6%. This is you are not finding present value 1.06. You are multiplying 6% the interest. This is the meaning of this is unwound. This is the meaning of unwound. Okay. So 1.6 on 6%, and this is an interest income of 96,000. This is a financing component. This is the meaning of significant financing component. Because why are we doing this unbounding? Please understand this also. Why are we doing this unbounding? Because you have used which rate to discount? The borrowing rate, no? The rate at which customer could borrow, market interest rate, 6%. So you have to find the interest income also, no? When you're using that rate, borrowing rate to discount, you have to find the interest income also using that rate. Using that rate only, you have to find the interest income. For the final year, for the last year, 31st March 2003, for that year. On the previous year receivable. And if it's for 31st March 2004, the last year, then on 31st March 2003, whatever the receivable is, on that you have to unwound 6% like this. Okay, but on 31st March 2003, there will be no any receivable. Will there be any receivable? Will there be any receivable? No. You cannot find out because you don't know how much cash that you have received on 31st March 2003. You still have the same receivable only brought forward. Okay, I think I have to. Okay, I will show here. See, you still have this 2002, 2003. 2002, what is the receivable? 1.6. This will be brought forward for 2003 also. Why? Because you didn't pay anything in cash in 2003. Unless if you pay something in cash, then only this receivable will go down. So this will be 1.6 only on 2003's statement of financial position. Correct? So on this 2003, we don't want to know what's happening in 2004. The requirement didn't ask. Only for 2002 and 3 they asked. Even though payment you are going to make in 2004. So that's why you have to unwound and find the interest income on 2003 for this. Because 2004, you don't have to pay any interest income. Why? That receivable will go out. You will pay in cash in 2004 and it will become 5 million. Whatever amount you have recognized revenue, you are going to receive in cash. So it will be cancelled off in 2004. All the payment you will receive, the balance from 5 million that you have to receive, you will receive in 2004. That's why there will be no receivable left. Your receivable will become 0 in 2004. Okay, so but in 2003, what are you going to do with this receivable? 1.6. You have to pay the interest income on this 6% borrowing rate. This I have taken more time to emphasize this point because this question, if it comes in the future, you'll be able to understand. Many people don't understand this because in the textbook it's not explained very so clearly. Even I have not done a question like this before. So this extra time that I've spent here, please make great use of this for you to explain this. Okay. This is only for receivable part we are talking about. Receivable at that date, 2003, multiply 6% and do. That's it. But for this revenue, yes, normal way, find the discount and just recognize revenue. Understood? For receivable part only, we want that. Discount, okay, on 31st March 2002, whatever the receivable that you have recognized, discount on the receivable recognized must be unbound. So interest income is 96,000. Now we are coming to the prior period error. So this means omissions or it could be misstatement. Error could be anything. for one or more prior periods arising from failure to use or misuse of reliable information. That is, this is pure knowledge. Okay, so that means maybe failure to use or misuse of reliable information that was available. That means reliable information was available when financial statements for those periods were authorized, but you failed to use, or could be reasonably expected to reasonably expected to have been obtained. You could reasonably expect to obtain those information, or you have those information but you didn't take use. So it could be one of those two reasons. This is knowledge part. You are this thing. So for this whole thing, 1 mark. Applying knowledge of prior period error. What is it? Okay. So such errors include, it could be anything: mathematical mistakes, arithmetical accuracy, right? Inaccurate figure, or maybe accounting policies and fraud could be there, mistakes in those. So the fact that Verge only included 1 million of revenue for the year ended 31st March is a prior period error. 1 mark for this and 1 mark for the last one. That's how you are getting 3 and 4, 7 marks. To identify that this is an error. Okay. Prior period error. Error could be anything: fraud or something to do with accounting policies that you have incorrectly applied. This case, Verge has already recognized revenue of 1 million in the 31st March 2002 statement of financial position, which is a prior period error. Okay. So Verge should correct. What should they do if it's an error? They should correct the prior period error retrospectively. To say that also 1 mark. First, you identified an error, 1 mark. Second, what are you going to do? How are you going to correct? You have to do retrospectively. What is the meaning of retrospectively? The main word is this one only. Means you have to go back and change the figure. There are two words: retrospectively, prospectively. Retrospectively means go back and change. Prospectively means no need to change the prior period figure. Change the current and the future, which is for accounting policies and estimates. But if it's an error, sorry, retrospectively comes for policies and error. Estimates prospectively. This is an error, mistake that they have done. It's not a change in accounting policy, or it's not an estimate. Estimate is something that for future you estimate, but this is an error. Okay, you have recognized revenue incorrectly. So in the financial statements for the year 31st March 2003, what are you going to do? Comparative amounts for this one should be restated. See, for 31st March 2003, right? You need 31st March 2002 figure also, 2002 figure also, because you have to compare. That's why the comparative amounts for the prior period should be restated. That means on 31st March 2003, this year is known as prior period. So that amount you have to restate on 31st March 2003. Okay, that is a comparative amount for 31st March 2003. The 31st March 2002's figure will be for 31st March 2003 comparative figure. That's why you have to restate those amount. Okay, 2002 you are not going to restate. On 31st March 2002, you have just recognized it's a prior period error. But 31st March 2003, you have to go back and change the 31st March 2002's figure. Restate. Okay, and obviously in the future and all, but it's not needed because your answer should only stick to this date. This is the end. Now we are coming to part B, which is proposed financing. Okay, this we didn't read. Part B. Okay, part B is for 9 marks and 2 this thing. Discuss the impact of the above proposals on the financial statements of Verge. Your answer should consider the potential impact on basic and diluted EPS. This is also a standard which many students don't pay attention because it's a small standard and it is not usually asked, but it can be asked in a question number 4. Yours 25 first question in section B. Thus I've covered as a separate standard IAS 33, and it is there under analysis and interpretation and analysis. There's a chapter in your SBR textbook from Kaplan. There's a chapter called analysis and interpretation. I think before the current issue is explained. So there, this is there. Even I've explained it also, but not in detail when I explain under current issue. Sorry, analysis and interpretation. Okay. So for that, yes. Why? Because through this EPS, you can analyze a company, their performance and all. That's why this is very important in your section B question. One is basic, one is diluted EPS. You should know how to calculate. The calculation, the formula you should know, because it will not be given to you in the formula sheet. You need to memorize the formula. I have provided the formulas in my lecture. Yeah, so answer should consist of machine but on this and this and on the primary user's perception of Verge financial position and performance. Two things. Three things. One is impact on basic, the other one is impact on diluted EPS, and the third one is on the primary user's perception. How do they perceive the company? The primary user. Who are the primary user? What is the meaning of primary user? Lender, your creditor, your investor, okay, your shareholder. These are the primary user, creditor, lender, and shareholder. Even though this is not very big, case study is small, but marks are big. Okay, that means you have to apply your knowledge here a bit and also some of your other experiences and all. So the directors of which I prepared focus for the next 5 years, and they are concerned that company does not have sufficient liquid assets to fulfill its expansion plan. They propose to raise required funds on one of the following ways. One, issue of 5 million ordinary share. Second, issue of 10 million convertible bond in exchange for cash proceed. Interest is payable annually in arrear. Bondholder will be able to redeem the bonds on 31st March 2006 in the form of cash or a fixed number of their ordinary share. What is this date? 1st of April 2003. That means 2004, 5 and 6. 3 years. This bond is for 3 years. Okay. First one should be easier. Second one should be a bit this thing because it's a convertible bond. And rate is unsure of the impact on the post. Okay. So there are two things. What is the issue of this? What are the impact of these two things? These two ways of raising finance on your basic EPS, diluted EPS, and primary user. How are you going to divide the marks now? If I ask you a plan, make a plan. Let's make a plan here, guys. Okay, so this I will write A, this I will write B. A, B. Obviously, this you should not do, okay, waste time, but visually you have to visualize. EPS, basic, EPS, diluted. That means calculations you have to do and explain also. And primary user. And same for this also, it's repeated. Here also is the same thing for B also. This. So how many things? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. 6 are there. Okay, and maybe 1 mark for here, 1 mark, 1 mark, 1 mark. So out of 9, I'm not talking about 2 professional marks. I'm not taking it into account that you will get for your presentation, all those things. I'm just talking about the 9 marks, 9 technical marks. So out of 9, 4 marks are there. Let's say 1 mark for EPS for both and 1 mark for, so 4 marks. That means remaining 5 marks are for your user. Okay. Under A, definitely it will be, let's say this is 2, this is 3, because bond will be having more points to write about. So 1 plus 1 plus 2, 4 marks. 1 plus 1 plus 3, 5 marks. So 4 and 5, 9 marks. This is just a rough plan, okay? But obviously, when you're writing the impact on the user, more marks will be there than the calculation, than the EPS. EPS, even though you have to calculate so many things, steps are there, 1 mark only you will get. Because 1 mark for each point. But for primary user, you'll be getting more points because under primary user, there is not just one user. It could be your lender and your shareholder. Try to talk about more than one. Here 2, here 3. Because convertible one, obviously more things. It will be impacting more stakeholders than the first one. Okay. Now, what is the benefit of this plan? You have a structure in your mind now. How you're going to proceed with this answer. It's very important. Not only because professional marks are there, even though for any other question also. If professional marks are not there also, this method is important. I have been using this for all the ACC papers, and it's of a great advantage, I must say. If a student does not have a plan like this on how to answer, things becomes very difficult. It's not that when you start writing only, okay, at that time only whatever comes up you keep writing, because then you have to do a lot of corrections, errors, cutting. You might repeat your points, you might miss out important points, you might not know what you have to cover, what you don't have to cover. So don't keep open-ended. Be very specific. This is the way only I'm going to write this answer. Now we'll come to the answer. So if you see here, not much we have to use this case study to show the impact on the users. You only need this for the calculation part. These two things. First understand why, for what purpose are we using this case study. Only for the calculation, because others you have to write from your first what are you going to do on calculation, or you are going to focus on the primary user. First you are going to focus on the calculation, because without the calculation you cannot show the impact on the user. You should know what you are going to write first, what are you going to write in the middle, and how are you going to end. Keep an opening and keep an end, keep an end, okay, of that answer in your mind. Always start with an end in your mind, otherwise it's no use. If it never ends, if you don't know where it ends, you will never be able to finish off an answer. Okay. Okay, so marking scheme is not given. Okay, so if you see here, okay, so if you see the answer, you cannot see much of an calculation. Okay, so definitely we'll see here. Just give me a minute why calculation is not there. Okay, issue of 5 million ordinary share, nothing to calculate there. It's just an issue of 5 million share, and second one is issue of 10 million. Otherwise, they would have given you. For EPS, you need your earnings, you need your number of share. So here you don't have to calculate. You just have to say the impact of this when you're issuing share, what is the impact on all those things. So yeah, now ordinary share. First one, ordinary share. Write it like this. Put a subheading. Ordinary share. Then comes convertible bond. Start with ordinary share because it's the easiest. Then talk about convertible bond. Okay, if you see, okay, you see, just scan. I'm taking you through the answers to see sorry, to show you that it's written in different paragraphs, even though it's just ordinary share. Three, maybe 1 2 3, and here how many? 1 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, definitely under convertible bond it's more. Now start off by explaining the accounting treatment of this. Will they impact profit? Will these instruments be classified as debt or equity or both? These are the two important things when it comes to earnings per share. Sorry, EPS. We are talking about EPS, right? Earnings per share. Very important for you to describe two things. What is the impact on the profit? Number two, whether it will be classified as debt or equity. This you have to explain in your answer. How do you start? See, they just told issue 5 million ordinary share. Even though it is your EPS, impact on EPS and all they are telling you, right? But which standard talks about ordinary share first? It is your IS 32, financial instruments. IS 32, we are talking about presentation here. Whether to present that debt or equity. Why debt or equity? Because this is the way you are financing. Maybe you are taking a loan or something. Here you are issuing ordinary share. So whether this you should present as an equity or a debt. Ordinary shares. Explain the nature of ordinary share. First, define 1 mark for this. Ordinary shares do not create a contractual obligation to deliver cash or another financial asset. You have no obligation to deliver cash in ordinary share. So according to IS 32, they are classified as equity. Please mention that. They don't have contractual obligation to deliver cash. They are classified as equity according to IS 32. Mention the standard. Because if you say they are classified as equity, examiner will be thinking it's your opinion. That's why you have to say as per according to this standard. It is classified as equity on the statement of financial position on this place. Okay, so if equity increases, gearing ratio will improve. If your equity increases, very important that you talk about gearing ratio because liquidity. Okay, when EPS comes, gearing ratio is very important. EPS is from the point of a gearing ratio. Why? Because just see, they told they do not have sufficient liquid assets. That's why we need to know the gearing things. They want to expand. Gearing ratio is one of the very important things for this thing. It's very important for you to identify which ratio could be important. There are so many ratios that you went through: profitability, liquidity, efficiency, gearing, investor. But which is very important for this is the gearing ratio. Because if something is classified as equity or something is classified as debt, your gearing ratio affects. Significance is shown on gearing ratio, not profitability ratio or any other ratios. Because gearing ratio is what? Debt divided by equity, or debt divided by debt plus equity. And this is equity. So if anything is affecting your debt and equity, your gearing ratio will get affected. That's the first ratio to get affected. That's why gearing ratio we're talking about here. So if equity increases, gearing ratio will improve. Equity is your this one. If this goes up, your number will go down. Number will go down means gearing ratio will reduce. It's always good if your gearing ratio is less. It's a healthy sign, which will make their finance structure looks less risky to its investors. You should talk, always mention what is the impact on the, how this could be beneficial for investor, how this could be beneficial for investor. Always have to think from that point and answer. If equity increases, gearing ratio will improve. So what? What is for the investor? You have to answer that part also. Don't just put a full stop and stop here. Benefit is it will make the financing structure looks less risky to the investor, because investors want what? Less gearing ratio. So for 1 mark for that, or maybe let's say 2 marks also you can get from here, because you have talked about the impact on the investor also. But we'll just keep it 1 mark, okay? Second, here with equity comes what? Always dividends. Like how interest automatically comes with loan, same way with ordinary share comes dividend. So don't forget to mention about dividend. Dividend paid on equity shares have no impact on profit. You have to show about impact on profit also, right? Will it have? No, it will have no impact on profit. But why are we talking about the impact of profit on this one? Debt to equity. They told impact on EPS and basic EPS and diluted EPS, right? Why are we talking about profit here? Because the formula for EPS, what is the formula for EPS? Earnings per share. Earnings and share. Per share, right? So earnings means your profit. Understood? If your profit is impacted, EPS also will get affected. If your share is impacted, also your EPS will get affected. Share. So we are breaking down it into one single, and then we are talking about EPS rather than directly talking about EPS. Understood? That's how you're going to get the 9 marks. Otherwise, they would have given this for 3 or 2 marks. If it was for 2 and 3 marks, if this question was for 2 and 3 marks, then okay, you can say EPS will go up and down based on this. That then it's enough. Then you don't have to separately talk about profit and debt equity like this. And share, when it comes to share, ordinary share, then comes debt equity. That's why we're talking about profit and debt over equity. These two things. Then we'll talk about EPS, because EPS is made up of earnings and shares, and it could be any ordinary share. So understood? Your profit earnings is your profit. So dividends have no impact on profit because they are charged directly to retained earnings. Dividends are in substance that dividends are distribution of the entity's profits to a shareholder. They do not have any impact. So another 1 mark for that. First mark, to talk about gearing ratio, it will improve and it will be for the investor also less risky. Second, dividends will have no impact on profit. Here you don't have to show the impact on the users. Okay, it's not important. That line by line only, it will, you have to talk about user. Third mark is here. Whenever I show 1 next to it means 1 mark. Issuing equity shares will increase, and see, when you issue equity shares, now we are talking about the issuing part. It was there in the case study, but all this while we have been coming to this point. But I don't know. Okay, when you issue equity shares, I know why my pen is not writing. I've been trying to okay, just this is so very annoying. Okay, guys, just excuse me. Okay, so when you issue equity shares, they told 5 million ordinary shares are issued. What is the impact? Now tell. Ordinary share will increase, but before that, we immediately see how we immediately didn't start answering with this point, this paragraph. We first talked about shares, whether it will be equity and debt. We told it's equity. Second, we talked about impact, no impact on profit. Then we are coming to this. Okay, so like this, you need to build up your answer. If you're writing like this, presenting in different paragraphs, coming to point like this, you will get your professional marks. Don't worry too much about professional marks. Just write in the format, write in a way that is easy to understand, presentable, and the professional marks will take care of its own. You will automatically attract those professional marks. Don't worry too much about it. Okay. So when you issue, ordinary shares will increase. It will increase or not? It will increase in the basic, in the, again it's the same thing. Okay, we'll just, in the basic EPS calculation. Okay, wait, just give me a minute. Why they have not mentioned about diluted EPS? Okay, this will not have so much of impact. This will not dilute your EPS. This issuing of basic ordinary share. That's why they have only talked about your basic EPS. Okay, it that diluted EPS comes in your convertible bonds. When your equity reduces or something changes in your equity, then we talk about diluted EPS. Diluted means something reducing. Meaning of diluted, right? And your diluted EPS will always be less than your basic EPS. So if the entity is not able to grow its profit, then basic EPS may fall year on year. This is something additional you are writing to this. Here you can get professional marks. This places. Okay. Here. If you write, if the entity is not, so here you can get some other professional marks for writing like this. You might even stop at basic EPS also. That it will increase number of this one. But now you are writing more things. How this can have an impact in the future maybe. So if the entity is not able to grow its profit, because we told no impact on profit, but ordinary shares are increasing. Okay, that's why we have to mention about profit in your answer. So if the entity is not able to grow its profit, that means no increase in profit. That means your earnings will not remain same. No increase in earnings. Only your ordinary shares are increasing. Then basic EPS. Okay, they may fall year on year. From year to year, they will fall. If you are not able to increase your profit. Because your, see, in your basic EPS, profit and equity, the shares, they come together, no? This is not increasing, no change. But this one is going up. Try with the number. Keep profit same, 2 million, 2 million, and just increase your shares from 1 to 2 and see how the number is going down. So your basic EPS will go down from year to year. Profit you cannot increase. So investors might perceive this negatively. You see, what is the impact on this one? They might take this as negatively. Just I just don't feel comfortable when I'm not able to write with the pen. It's very hard to write with my hands, so I don't want to know what happened. It's not at all working. Okay, maybe now I'll be able to do something. Okay, now it's working. Cool. So investors. This can have an impact on the user. Always try to show that impact on the user. The more points you write, the more marks you will get. Investors will perceive this negatively, right? If your basic EPS goes down. So in short, you are telling that the impact on the EPS is that it will reduce when you issue ordinary share when profit does not change. So investors will perceive this negatively because it is an indication that future dividends returns will fall. When your earnings per share falls, then what? What does it mean? Your future dividend also will fall. That means dividend also you cannot pay will fall. It's not good sign. Investors always want rise in dividend returns. Okay, now we are coming to convertible bonds. Here you have to mention more things because it can affect both your debt and equity. Because it has a equity component also, debt component also to it. A bond that is redeemed in a form of cash or fixed number of entities share. Entity's own equity share is a characteristic of a debt and equity. It could be debt, it could be equity. Why? If it's a cash, that means you have an obligation to pay cash. It's a debt. If it's a fixed number of entities own equity shares, then it's an equity. Same according to IS 32 only, it says this. So what does it mean? You have to split the bond into liability and equity component because now it has both the component. Convertible bond. Looking at the word convertible bond, bond you can convert to shares. Okay, you can understand. Even from your common sense, you can write this that it has bond and equity. So both has to be split. It is in one now. You have to split this into separate component, liability and equity component. Liability component. How do you calculate liability? You always start with the liability component first. How do you calculate? By taking the cash repayment and discounting them to present value. Because you'll be paying for 3 years. So find today the present value by discounting them and cash repayment. By using the rate, how are you going to discount? Using which rate? Similar non-convertible bond. The rates which is used for other bond where this convertible option is not there. Conversion option is not there. Because you are taking it as a bond only. Understood? Bond, liability component, only bond, no equity component to that. That's why when you're taking a rate also on a similar bond, that means non-convertible bond, only the liability component we want. We don't want equity with that. And that rate will be given to you. You don't have to worry. Okay. So the difference between the cash proceed and the liability component is classified as equity. Equity is the balance. Equity is the residual. First, always start with liability. Okay. From the cash proceed, the amount that you're going to receive from cash, deduct your liability component and whatever is remaining is your equity. Understood? So for that you will get 1 mark to show that you have to classify them as equity and liability. Now coming to the second area. Definitely will okay, no, it's okay. 1 mark here. Here we are talking about what? Liability component. Separately we're talking about it. Liability component is normally much larger than, yes, most of the time, yes, liability component is much larger than equity component. Okay, why are we talking this? Because we have to show the impact on the gearing ratio. So because of this issue of bond, what happened? Gearing ratio deteriorate. Your gearing ratio falls down because liability component is more no than equity. If your debt is more than equity means your gearing ratio deteriorate means what? It's going up. Gearing is increasing. It's not good for you. Increasing their perception of risk. Always talk about investor. If this is happening, if this gearing ratios are improving or declining, getting better or worsening, what is the impact? How user is going to take this? Sorry, investors are going to take this. Investor is a user only, right? They will perceive this as more risky. Their perception of risk will increase. They will take it more risky. No one likes when gearing ratio goes up. So this is because liabilities necessitate. Why they will take it more risky? Liabilities means more risk. Mandatory you have to make the repayment, whereas equity does not. In equity, if you don't pay dividend, it's okay. It's not a risk. You don't have an obligation to give dividend. If you don't want to give dividend, if you're not making a profit, it's okay. Liability, no one cares. Okay, even if you're going to die also, you have to pay the repayment, or someone on your behalf have to make those repayment as mandatory. Okay, Obviously, you're not going to die. I'm just for an example to show you the seriousness of it, why it is risky. So yeah, one, two, three. Uh, okay. What about interest? With convertible bond comes interest also. If this is issued, not only your gearing ratio, this will have an impact on your interest expense also. And interest expense will affect your profit. This will be charged to profit and loss. Okay. Because convertible bond, with bond we have liability, with liability we have interest goes to profit and loss, that means your profit and loss is affected because EPS we are talking about. So this interest, how are you calculating this interest? Applying effective rate of interest to the liability component, only to the liability component. So interest expenses, how many things you are writing here, whereas the question was only impact on EPS and diluted EPS and on the user. So requirement is less, but you have to write more because 9 marks. So interest expenses, and you have to explain also the way you're explaining. You see, first you're explaining how it will affect gearing ratio. First you say whether it's debt or equity, then we say how it affects ratio, then we say how it impacts on the user. So like this, if you give talk and writing paragraphs, writing proper subheading, you will get your professional marks. Okay. For a 9 marks question, you're supposed to write like this, detailed. You have to write it in a detailed way. One by one, you're explaining. If interest expense, where it will go, how it will affect profit, then how it will affect EPS, then basic EPS, then how it will affect your diluted EPS, then how it will affect your user. It's a bit more. Okay, too much. It looks like too many of things, but trust me, practice, practice, and practice until this type of question is nothing for you. Becomes very easy for you. Okay. Because it's big marks, 9 marks looks very scary and too much to write, but once you know that the structure and the way you have to write one after the other, you know the points, it will become very easy. Don't read answers, okay? Don't read answers and it will not work. Because when you read answers, you are just doing a passive learning, you're not doing an active learning, you are not making use of your brain, or you're not thinking why this point is here, why they're talking about interest expense, why they're talking, because where is the question only asked about EPS and diluted EPS, then why are talking about the interest expense? Because this will have an impact on the profit, and profit is in earnings. For earnings per share, we need earnings. Okay, so how can you think like this when you're reading answer? When you're reading answers, you don't think like this normally until you yourself start doing the question and start thinking how I'm going to collect the 9 marks. That means I have to write a detailed answer. Okay. Trust me, when I was in your stage, okay, this is my personal experience I'm sharing with you for you to understand better. When I was doing initially, when I started ACCA, these things I also didn't understand how they're writing this big para. I used to get scared. Trust me, I usually used to get scared normally. Most of the time it was like this. I used to panic. I'm talking about my earlier days when I was first introduced, and I used to this thing because SBR was my first paper in ACCA. So yeah, I used to panic a lot looking at this because it looks very easy when you are learning on the book and all, and then when I come to apply this, I'm like, how they are thinking about. I used to think how the examiners are writing these points. I mean, from what angles they are thinking, and they are writing this big, and how they are taking it in different paragraphs, how they are writing this many points, and why are they mentioning it here? Whereas the question is only on EPS and this. I used to ask, write very direct answers. Your EPS will increase, improve, and users will be affected this way, that only this. I used to count points like this, that sometimes I don't get the 9 points, and then I used to just give up, and I used to go back and read answers. And what happened first time when I gave SBR, I just went to the exam hall by reading answers, and I used to think I know it everything, I know it all, because it looks very easy when you read answers. You used to understand also, you understand also everything. It's not that you are confused, because when you're confused only you will ask questions, no? When you're understanding something by reading, why will you ask? So I used to believe that I know everything because I understood everything. But then later, when I failed SBR at 43 in my first attempt, I have failed SBR in first attempt. So I was like, what is this? Because I was a bright student, I was a good student, and that was my first failure. Okay, and I just couldn't take it. until I came to realize that something, it's not that my studying is there is lacking in my studying. I have studied enough. I know about every standard. It's the way I have approached the questions. My strategy was incorrect. I need to change my strategy. So what happened when I set for my second attempt in when was it? I gave in December 2018. I think March 2019. March 2019 I set for the paper SBR. But before setting, I will tell you the process. Obviously, we'll come to the result. I passed. Okay, I passed. Yeah, so second attempt I passed. But before coming to the pass, we'll talk about the strategy because that's more important. I want you to know the strategy than knowing that I have passed. Because passed anyway, you will pass. Is the end result. So I just changed the strategy. I didn't. I know the standards. I didn't because there is nothing, there is not an issue of from my side that I'm not understanding them. I understood everything. The only thing is the way I'm understanding the question, I'm approaching a question, the way I answer, the way I apply, the application skill was lacking. Knowledge part is 100% is there. Application skill, the way I apply, the way I see the question, the way I process the questions. I read and then I process. That was not appropriate. That was not correct. That is, and no one taught me this. Trust me. Even I have worked under best tutor. Okay, in fact I did a class for my first attempt. Yes, I went. Second, I did everything on my own self. Second, because I know the pattern and everything, uh, all the lectures are taught. So second attempt I did it on my own, and no one taught me this. What I am teaching you today in front of the videos that you can see in front of the camera, no one taught me this. Trust me, this I have discovered on my own. When I was doing plenty of questions, 10, 15 questions I've gone through, then I understood that there's a pattern to all these questions. If you see all the answers, when you read in your textbook, sorry, your revision kit, in any ACCA paper for any subject, there is a particular pattern for every subject. If it's for SBR, there is a pattern. If it's tax, there is a pattern. If it's an audit, there is a pattern. But there is a pattern. And I was trying to crack this pattern. I was thinking that there must be some pattern to this. Then I got this pattern, that there's a pattern of way of answering any question. Then I have seen how they answer. I have taken 2 3 questions together like this and I checked the answer. First they start with the standard, the rules. Then they talked, then they applied that to the case study. Then they told what is the impact on all those things. This pattern is similar no matter what question it is, no matter what is the nature of the question. It could be very different, but this pattern is there. And then they always write in paragraphs. And how they divided in paragraph, how do I know? Then they understood that one point they write in one particular paragraph, one after the other. Then I started counting the paragraph. Then I know, okay, for 5 marks they will write 5 paragraphs or 4 paragraphs. So this I have discovered on my own, and trust me, this really did wonders when I was doing. Obviously, I studied from scratch everything, all the standards. Obviously, I made a timetable. Those are okay, common, everyone knows. You may have to make a proper timetable, you have to be strict. I was very strict on myself. I made a timetable, but I was flexible also. Not that I worked 6 7 hours and I had to do some. There were days when I didn't study at all, also, and I'm still like that. I give myself sometimes break and all. That's why if you see that I don't upload videos sometimes I'm like gone away, not at all there on YouTube, because I am on my break, my vacation. I need time to refresh also, because we always treat ourselves like machines working 24/7, which is not true. We are humans after all. So yeah. Anyway, that's the important thing, is that the strategy, the way I've seen the questions, the answer they are. It's very repetitive. This pattern, once you analyze it, once you discover this pattern, this is a weapon that you can use against any question. And this same strategy I applied for other papers also, not just SBR. This helped me in my AFM, ATX, and SBL. SBL a bit more I had to do because it's a different kind of paper. But yes, definitely there also. This pattern of answering helped me everywhere, all the papers. After that, I've never failed. That was this. And I passed with 70% SBR. Second attempt when I passed, so from 43 to 70, you can see such a huge jump. It's not that I've studied more, that's why I got more. It's just I changed a little bit of my strategy, the way of looking a question, the way of analyzing a question. They used to break down each line by line answers. They used to break each and everything. Then I understood that when they talk about specific formula, questions like this is applicable to this question. That's why I'm telling you. For example, gearing ratio, they told EPS. So okay, just, okay, EPS, right? So if it's EPS, earnings per share, earnings is one thing, share is another thing. Earnings, for earnings, what do we need? Profit. So anything which affects profit, I can write. Anything which affects sharing, I will write. And then I will talk about the impact on that ratio, specific ratio EPS. So this is how it has helped me in everywhere. Especially when ratios comes, this is the same way. All the ratios are tested this way only. You talk about the numerator part, you talk about the denominator part, and then you talk about the specific ratio, how it is affecting. So through this, you can collect marks, huge amount of marks you can get, and definitely professional marks. I was very particular about the way I present. I use subheadings. I write in paragraphs, and I don't write too long. Paragraphs are usually 5 to 6 lines max, and minimum is one to 2 lines. Sometimes it's 1 line also. I keep it. So through this way, I was able to finish the paper, all the questions, and I didn't leave any questions. I did all the questions. In fact, yeah, all the questions were covered. So I was like quite shocked. I was shocked because I was not expecting a 70. To be honest, I was like, okay, if I pass at 50 or 51 also, that's like, Alhamdulillah, I'll be very happy because my aim is just to pass. But yeah, a little change in strategy can do so much of wonder. So if I can pass from 43 to 70, definitely you, in first attempt, if you follow this little techniques, you can even get in 90s also. Because SBR is a paper like that. It's a very scoring paper. If you see the pass rate, SBR has the best pass rates. It's one of the easiest paper. If you ask me what is the easiest paper in P level, it is SBR. And I would even advise you also to start a paper with SBR. So it's a great paper. Even though I personally like finance more than applying this this standards and all, but yes, SBR is one of such a scoring paper. So there you can score. So do not lose your hope even at this stage if you're not able to do, because it took me a lot of time. After 10-20 questions I understood that this is a pattern. Once I understood, rest is nothing. Okay, rest, everything became easier. I was able to manage time. My time management was better. The way I collect points, I think, I analyze, I visualize the structure, that this is the structure I'm going to write, and our answer becomes, it saves a lot of time. Time saving is there. I was able to write in the time given. Sometimes not maybe full, but yeah, whatever I was, maximum at least 80% of the answer I was able to do. Just I was able to justify that. So yeah, these are some tips for my students I would like to give. So now let's come back to the answer. Okay, enough of the thing advices for today. And I'm definitely hoping for some positive results from you guys after hearing my story. Okay, should motivate you. So yeah, interest expenses. That's why we're talking about interest expenses. It affects your profit, and profit is there in a part of your EPS, earnings per share. So interest expenses are charged to statement of profit and loss. And because interest is there, it's an expense, it will reduce your profit. And hence your basic EPS. Because it's earnings, earnings goes in the numerator. So why is an issue? Convertible bonds have no, okay, convertible bonds will have no impact on the number of shares that are used in basic EPS. Because in the basic EPS, it is just your earnings divided by number of shares. See how it is different from the first one. First one, your shares are changing, no change in profit. Here your profit is changing, no change in shares. And here also your EPS is declining. There also it was declining. Now we are going to shift to diluted EPS from basic EPS. Okay. Most convertible bonds are dilutive instruments. What is the meaning of dilutive instruments? It will dilute your earnings, your shares. Your EPS will reduce. Convertible bond can reduce your EPS. Why? This is because the entity has a commitment to issue ordinary shares in the future. You have a commitment. that you have to issue this many of shares under convertible bonds. Because of this commitment, your shares will go down. Okay. The maximum amount of shares that Verge may issue to redeem the convertible bond should be included in the diluted EP. Okay, the maximum that you can issue to redeem the convertible bond. That means from that day your bond will become equity. Okay, you have to issue this. You have a commitment. It will be included in your diluted EPS calculation, right? So more over the earnings figure. What about the earnings figure? This will increase. Used in the calculation should be increased by the current year interest on the bond. Because this will not be charged after redemption. Understand this point. Why? 1 mark for this. Or maybe 2 marks for this. I could say. This may be 2 marks, we'll say. Because it is the impact on this thing. How? When your bond becomes equity, that means your debt is becoming equity. You are saving on interest. You don't have to pay interest any longer. So because you don't have to pay interest any longer, your profit will now go up because you don't have to deduct that interest from your profit. So profit means earnings. Earnings figure will go up. Earnings figure goes up means what? Your EPS will increase. It's a numerator, right? So earnings figure will increase. After redemption, you don't have to charge interest. Now coming to the last one. So dilution of EPS wants current. Okay, you just see how it is diluted. Your profit is earnings is increasing and profit is also increasing because you don't have to charge. So disclosure of EPS wants current and potential investors that earnings per share will fall. When you're disclosing this, it wants the current as well as the potential investors, both are your users, that EPS will fall when the convertible bond is redeemed. This is like a conclusion that you are giving. Okay, your diluted EPS. Okay, diluted EPS means your earnings per share. How much it will fall? That is the meaning of diluted EPS. Your earnings per share will fall when convertible bond is redeemed. When it is redeemed, EPS will fall, which is not a good sign because your bond is becoming your equity. In that case, your shares will be increased, right? Your denominator is going up, so your number will fall down. So if investors are concerned about the potential drop and this may impact and the impact this may have on their investment return, they may decide to invest in other companies. Finally, how this will have an impact, they may decide to invest in other companies because they are worried about their investment returns. It will fall if EPS keeps on falling. No one likes a falling EPS, so investors will likely to invest in other companies. So that's how you analyze a company. Okay, so I hope that this is a very good question for your understanding of writing a question on EPS, operating segment, and what else? Revenue recognition. So make sure that these are the topics that we have covered and make sure that you practice this. Maybe not this question, but a similar question to this before you actually read answers. Okay, you actually have to do answers because I have been doing questions. When I'm doing questions, I understood my strength, I understood my weaknesses also, which I was able to perform better and better. I was able to correct my mistakes. Okay, so until you don't do a question, you don't write the answer on your own, with time you will make mistakes. Let yourself make that mistake, then you will improve, because when you make mistake there's a chance for you to improve. But if you're reading, there are no chance for you to improve. You're not doing anything, you're just reading. Trust me, you feel like you're retaining everything, you will recall everything, you'll remember everything. When you go to that exam hall, you will not have any confidence, because to have that confidence you need to stress yourself to think, and you think when you're writing an answer. When you're reading, you're not thinking anything. So utilize that time. Make sure that you do this question in the time given, because 9 marks feels like you are spending so much of time, but you have to write it in a time. 9 into 1.8, maybe 17 to 18 minutes you have to spend on this. So yeah, so follow all those tips and techniques and see you in the next question. Till then, take care.